In what you saw in the movie, every single one of them was handcrafted.
Not only did we build these props, but we shot photographic tests that became part of our turnover package to Weta.
We didn't think it was the right thing to ask a computer artist to sit there and just start creating something in a vacuum without understanding how the light hit it. If they could hold it in their hands, if they could look at it and turn it, if they could look at a piece of video of how it moved on an actor or on a model, then they could figure out the complex simulations, the physics-based simulations to get that cloth to move and to create surfaces that had just the right amount of reflection and specularity and subsurface scattering and all that other geeky stuff that we all love, so that when it turned in the light, it looked absolutely real. And that's how you do it. You have to make it first in the real world, and then you make it in the CG world.
The Navi took a long time to design, but the blue color was never in question, because I felt that it was a fundamentally alien skin color that could be quite beautiful. We initially started out with kind of more amphibian-like and reptilian kind of forms, and we kept realizing that it wouldn't work as a love story to see them not be attractive. But the idea that they incorporated animal-like features, cat's ears and cat tails and a slightly more protrusive muzzle.
The rainforest, which is our most biodiverse biome on planet Earth. And so for me, it had to be the ultimate rainforest. Everything was bigger, richer, lusher, bigger flowers, bigger plants, enormous trees, 300 meters tall in some cases. And then backing in from that, reverse engineering, what's the logic for that? What's the rationale? Well, if you had a lower gravity planet with a denser atmosphere, for example, that might be very possible. We started off with the idea that the leaves would be sort of, bluish tinted, sometimes even purple. Maybe the sky would be green. And as we started to develop artwork along that line of the kind of cyan forest, which is what we called it at the time, we found that it always looked a little not real. So we embraced the idea of green. And I think we're hardwired deep in our brains that green means life. And we thought, all right, we'll use the night palette to create a sense of otherworldliness.
It was important for us in designing the world to give touchstones to Earth that allow the audience to relate to the world that we were creating. We use Mother Nature here on Earth as an inspiration for so much of what is on Pandora. But we took things out of context. Let's take things that Mother Nature has done underwater, like bioluminescence, and place them above the surface.
It's taking what is beautiful about Earth and then trying to extrapolate from it to make something that is an ideal. The planet, it has a strong enough magnetic field to lift up mountains. So you don't just have beautiful mountains, they're floating mountains, they're mountains in the sky. We wanted it to look cool, had to look cool. But we weren't just making it up out of thin air. But we tried to ground it in our understanding of reality as much as possible.
When you consider how many trees and how many plants and how many creatures and how many things are in Pandora, you have to realize that someone put all those rocks there and someone built that ground and another guy placed all the plants. Jim spent a lot of time with some of the best artists in the business designing the world and designing the creatures.
Jim wanted the creatures to be very bright and colorful, like Earth. You go into the jungle, you have poison dart frogs, you've got birds of paradise, you've got all kinds of different beautiful animals that are just brilliantly colored and textured. And Jim he's the real deal. He doesn't pretend to be interested in science or pretend that he's knowledgeable. He knows this stuff. And so you can get into these really in-depth conversations where we would discuss, okay, well, if you have more gravity, would you get stumpier legs? Everything was sort of based on what we understand about biology and morphology and physiognomy and everything else. Like, why would you have a six-legged creature? How would things develop and evolve in an environment where you have a denser atmosphere and a lower gravity? And a perfect example was the hexapede. Went through a very give-and-take process with Jim where I was trying to figure out, well, okay, can they hear? Can they smell? Like, what are their senses? And I had the idea that, well, it can smell, but it doesn't have a nose in the traditional sense like on Earth where we have two nostrils, because Jim had come up with the idea that we have this operculum in the shoulders that actually breathes through these holes in the shoulders to get directly to a lung system instead of going through the head. So the six-legged thing, we started reasoning, well, you have an environment where there's a lot of vines, a lot of ground cover. Everything's very uneven. There's no real flat surfaces. And that's also why they sort of have hands, so they can grab and pull themselves up. So the design fed the solution, and the solution, the sort of scientific ideas, fed the design.
We want people to relate to our world and our characters on human terms, not on alien terms. What we call the hexapede. That's the equivalent of a deer. If you look at stern beasts, it's the equivalent of a rhinoceros, but it's unique to our world. And we wanted to make everything that we designed not just unique, but recognizable to the Avatar world.
One of the things that really always amazes people about this production is that all of